I had a kidney infection and I was about 33 years old. And I had promised that if I got over this kidney infection in the hospital, I was really sick, that I would be devoted to him the rest of my life, and I have, and I'm 68 years old.
I said, okay, so they say St. Jude is cousin of Jesus. Our Lady of Guadalupe is a mother of Jesus. I said, so they're combined. And I always say, well, if I pray to one, I'm praying to that. I'm still praying to the family.
They made a novena to St. Jude so that my father would find a job and they could get married, and promised that their first child would be named after St. Jude. So Dad found a job, and they were married in '39, and I arrived in '40 and was named Judith Mary.
Simple testimonies of faith have such power. Welcome to our program. I'm Will Shaw, and those of us associated with the St. Jude League, the National Shrine of St. Jude, and other Claretian ministries want to share with you the history, tradition, and stories that are at the heart of the devotion to St. Jude. Now, St. Jude, as you've already heard, is a steadfast and faithful friend to so many. Let's begin with some background on this wonderful apostle and saint. Claretian Father Mark Brummel shares some details.
St. Jude was one of the original 12 apostles, and he was related to Jesus. We know from one of the accounts in the Gospels that when they were asking about Jesus, who Jesus is, they said, isn't he the brother of James, Joses, Judas, and Simon? And so we know that Jesus was closely related to Jude, and was close to Jesus during his life, and suffered a martyr's death. And one of the legends about Jude is that he cured the king of Edessa, Abigaro. He had some kind of leprosy, and he appealed to Jesus for a cure. But Jesus simply told him to have faith, and someone would come to him eventually. That person turned out to be Jude. Abigaro sent an artist to paint a picture of Jesus, but was unable to do so. Jesus, out of compassion, put a cloth over his face, and his image was imprinted on this cloth, and that was brought back to the king of Edessa. One of the images that you see of the statue of St. Jude is with this image of Christ on his chest. The flame over the head of St. Jude represents the idea that Jude was an apostle and received the Holy Spirit on Pentecost. It's also kind of an indication that he received the gift of tongues. In the Middle Ages, several saints had devotion to St. Jude. St. Bernard of Clairvaux and St. Bridget of Sweden. St. Bridget apparently had a vision of the Lord who told her that she could turn to St. Jude and he would help her. And then the early 20th century, we know that the Claretian missionaries in Chile were the first to set up a special devotion and a shrine to St. Jude. And it was from that devotion in Chile that Father James Tort, Claretian here in the United States, around 1923, found a prayer card to St. Jude and started a personal devotion to the saint. And that was in Prescott, Arizona. And then eventually he came to Chicago and founded this parish of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Marvelous story, isn't it? But perhaps equally marvelous are the stories of people whose devotion to St. Jude burns brightly in the center of their own lives.
I was unemployed for quite some time. And I had 5 children and a wife to take care of. And it seems as though I wasn't going anywhere. So one day I seen an article in the paper about these novenas to St. Jude. And I decided I'd go to make one of these novenas. The fact was that I needed that inner comfort and wanting to be in a position to help my family. And I believe in prayers. I believe very much in prayers. After making this novena in October of 1961, 2 months later, I got a job with Chicago Park District. I feel all of that was due to making these novenas.
And I don't think anything would stop me from coming here. We say our prayers together instead of saying them at home like I do. And it's a nicer feeling when you say them in a group. And Father will give a little sermon, and we have benediction. It's a very nice feeling to be gathered together in a group like this and to see so many people that have faith in St. Jude.
But I was always told that there was this special person that was there for me. And I had the prayer card. I still have the prayer card at home, and a little statue of St. Jude that I've had since grammar school. And it's very tattered, and he was always there. It was your special connection to the Lord.
And I think it's faith. And not only that, I think people pray for me. Because if anything is happening to me, the good things and all that, it's not because of my prayers, it's because of the prayers that the people have offered for me. Honey, I said, don't forget, that's the first thing I think of, my friends, I said, in the novenas that I go pray. And I also pray the St. Jude prayer daily. Glorious St. Jude, faithful servant and friend of Jesus, the name of the traitor has caused you to be forgotten by many.
It's not surprising that such devotion moved the Claretian Fathers to begin novenas to St. Jude and to establish the national shrine to him in their South Chicago parish, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Veteran Chicago journalist John Kunster knows the story well.
The beginning of this devotion to St. Jude, of course, sprung from Father Tort. And he had a devotion to St. Jude even before he came here. And it continued when he was here. And then in 1929, they were starting to build this church, where the present shrine is located. And funds were very short. And he was concerned that he would never have enough funds to complete the church. But there were bad times here. Prior to the Great Depression, which started in October 1929 with the Great Crash, it hit this area in February. Even before that, the steel mills started to shut down, and so many people who lived out here worked at the steel mills. Their livelihood was tied up with the mills, so hard times fell upon the parish. And Father Tort felt that perhaps this service to St. Jude would give people hope for the future. I remember talking to Brother James, who's still alive today, who remembers very vividly the bread lines that were beginning to form out of people didn't have food to eat even. So it provided a ray of hope for these people. And evidently the devotion became quite popular through word of mouth, because the following Lenten season, when they covered the statues, during Lent, when they covered the statue with the purple drapes, he very quietly moved the statue of St. Jude to the right altar and gave it more prominence. October 1929, it had become so popular that novena that year, that last one of that year, they had 1,000 people outside, couldn't get in the church. So it was like something that this sort of took hold quickly, just basically, I imagine, by word of mouth. I think the devotion to St. Jude, it's so tied in to the power of prayer. And I think all of us believe in the power of prayer, I think. And it's quite obvious that many of these prayers were answered. I have prayed to St. Jude on occasion. In fact, I was widowed 13 years ago, and and for some reason I prayed to St. Jude that I would live long enough to help raise the rest of my kids. Okay, I have 8 children. And I did, and then I got to thinking, well, should I get married someday? Maybe, maybe not. But it was a sort of a prayer. It was not a formal prayer, but I'd think about it many times. And sure enough, in the past few years, I did meet a wonderful woman who works for the Claretians, not in this country though, and we're going to get married on July 1st.
The devotion continues at the National Shrine. Every Wednesday, year-round, the Claretians conduct special services to St. Jude. 5 times a year, The shrine celebrates solemn novenas in honor of our great patron. And of course, the stream of believers visiting for personal prayer and devotion is constant.
We encourage people to thank St. Jude. So we do get many, many letters, people saying that St. Jude has come to their aid. And a lot of the people that come to the church come as a result of other people telling them about St. Jude, that pray to St. Jude and he will help you.
I just start coming with her every day, and then little things have been happening, and been praying to St. Jude and asking if this is meant to be, you know, let it be.
You see people at the shrine altar and they're lost in prayer. Well, we have people coming for over 30 years here to the shrine.
My mother, who was a Protestant, before she passed, she made quite a few of these. These novenas with me as often as she possibly could until she passed in 1980. She believed in making these novenas. And we would come 2-3 times a year whenever I was able to come.
Well, we have a candle room where people can bring their petitions and leave them and light candles. In a sense, that light represents their petition continuing even after they've left the church. Those petition slips are gathered together and placed under the altar of St. Jude during the time of the solemn novena. And in a way, it kind of shows the community aspect of the devotion, that it's not just a personal devotion, but that really everyone is praying for one another.
But I've never stopped making these novenas from 1961 on up until the present time. And I believe they have been very helpful to me.
There are thousands of people with a devotion to St. Jude who never get a chance to visit the Chicago Shrine. They join in another kind of community as members of the St. Jude League. Some of the people who work in the St. Jude League office tell that story.
People wanted to get in some more of a formal organization, and under the guidance of Father Tort and then later Father DePrada, the St. Jude League became a national and now international group of people who have a devotion to St. Jude and who gather their prayers together in common times.
I've been working here on and off for over, let's say, almost 24 years. And it's a good place to work for. It's a small organization. It's like a family thing here. You know everybody. But we take the work serious because a lot of times you pick up, your family may be going through cancer, a lot of problems at home with your teenagers, and you pick up a letter and you think you're reading about yourself, and then you know you can understand, you know, what the people are writing about. So I take every letter serious.
St. Jude is supposed to be the patron saint of the helpless and the hopeless, and well, where do people go? Somebody that they know, will help them, and they really rely on him. And in most cases, things turn out for the people. They might be small, but to them it's a miracle.
I think there are a lot of benefits for membership. For one thing, people who are members are helping spread devotion to St. Jude to others, so that you're not just keeping it yourself, you're helping to spread it and pass it on. The members of the St. Jude League often are very generous and can support the work of the Claretians in spreading devotion and maintaining the shrine. We like to think that all the people join their prayers together, and that the power of prayer united is extremely strong.
It's all about faith. It's all about a simple and almost forgotten apostle. It's all about St. Jude, who in and through Christ serves us still as a caring and faithful friend. You may be someone looking for a spiritual friend and intercessor, or you may know someone who is. The St. Jude League would love to hear from you, to pray for and with you. And we'd love for you to have our simple novena book and prayer card, completely free of charge. Just write to Father Robert at the St. Jude League. Here's the address. The St. Jude League, 205 West Monroe Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60606. And don't hesitate to write for yourself or a loved one. Thanks for joining us. And thanks for spreading the word about our faithful friend, St. Jude.
When people talk about St. Jude, they always talk about how they feel he is with them in their needs, and he's aware of them. He's proven himself to be a steadfast, a loyal, very compassionate friend in times of distress. And so that when people express their own needs, they're not praying to St. Jude, they're including their friend in on their needs. They're letting their friend know what's going on with them and what they want.